My biggest takeaway podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back. Today I have Clayton Snyder, and to me, Clayton has been a big inspiration to me personally, in might not ways that he might not think. And for myself, it's consistency. The man shows up every day for his business through his content, and it's over and over and over. And I know that some people find things to be repetitive, but to me, consistency is how you built the business, is the business, is and how you essentially excel in anything in life. So I want to first commend you for showing up for yourself day in and day out because I know there's days you didn't want to.
hmm Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I received that, and it's not an easy thing to do, especially like you said. Like consistency is such a monotonous thing, to where honestly, everyone probably looks at the lifestyle that you live and like all these other super successful entrepreneurs, and
Oh, wow.
they think it's all flashy. They think it's all fun, and the reality is like building a business is not. It's boring. It's a lot of boring back end work.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes to get to a level to where you can sustain it on your own and be full time. And I'm super excited to kind of dive in, about how I was able to do it. And I'm sure that I know that you're going to have some amazing insights as well.
Well, let's dive right in, man. So this is my biggest takeaway podcast. And one of the things I try to dive in is really figure out what makes a person tick, right? I try not to do some of the same old boring questions.
Mhm.
I really just try to have a conversation and see where it goes. So, where did you grow up?
I'm a Florida boy. I'm born and raised in Florida.
Okay.
I was born in Orlando. Grew up in a small town outside of Orlando called Claremont. It's blown up a little bit now, but I lived there till I was about 4 or 5, and we moved over to a town outside of Tampa called Wesley Chapel, which is just blown up now. Like one of the fastest growing cities. Like really a big family city. Anyone looking
Mhm.
like young families looking to start. So I lived there basically my whole life until I graduated high school in 2014, and then moved to South Tampa, like downtown area, when I graduated high school in 2014. So I've never lived in a state outside of Florida,
Wow. What do you think about that?
dude. Like I've been a lot of places in the world, and I haven't been everywhere. But a lot of people like to dog on Florida, and they say it's too hot, it's too humid, and Tampa specifically, I feel like is kind of like a low. It's not like it has a big city feel, but it's not like Miami or
Yeah.
LA or New York to where it's one of the fastest growing cities in the world for a reason. It's beautiful here. I absolutely love it. The food's amazing. I always tell people the only place I could really see myself living outside of Tampa that I've been is San Diego. And that's really been the only other place that I've really been like,
Fair.
okay, this place is comparable just because the
Yeah.
weather's great. It's not freezing cold, and it's honestly like a very entrepreneurial, like success driven area,
Sure.
to where it's like it's very fast paced, and that's the type of stuff that I really like.
Yeah, I was going to say your tax advisor CPA is going to highly suggest you do not move to San Diego.
Yeah, I like the same. I like our values a little bit better in Florida as well. So
I heard that. So, 2014, is this the only thing that you've ever done, or like, where'd you make your first dollar, man?
Um, so I was really big in hospitality. So I worked for restaurants basically from the time that was my first job. I worked at a pretzel stand. One of my best friends growing up, his parents moved down from Philly. They bought a pretzel stand and he asked me if I wanted to work part time. I did that and I basically jumped from restaurant to restaurant. And I think where I kind of got my first, taste of the entrepreneurial grind was I actually, when I moved back, I went to Florida State, like the community college, Tallahassee Community College, that's affiliated with Florida State for a year and a half. That's when I really got into fitness. And that's when I started getting into like all these YouTubers like Steve Cook and Christian Guzman, Bradley Martin. And I saw the lifestyle they lived, and I was like really into fitness at that point. So when I moved back from Tallahassee, I was like, I want to do something, fitness related. So I got a job at a meal prep company, tied to the fitness industry. I met this guy in an elevator. His name was Chandler, he started the company himself. They had like 4 employees, and he literally was just wearing a shirt. in the elevator, and I asked him if he was hiring. He was like, "Yep." He's like, "You're gonna have to start in the kitchen though." And I basically was under this guy's wing, and I actually dropped out of school to work for this guy because he basically offered me a good, like, back then, which I think this is like 2017, 2018. I mean, he offered me, like, I think it was a little over like $15 an hour. And back then, like, that was a good starting pay. Like, I was like,
Mhm.
I'm probably not going to get this, coming right out, like, in any other job right now. And I hated school and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was never a good student. So I literally worked for this dude, and I dropped out of school. I told my dad, like, hey, I'm going to do this. He was not happy because he was supplementing my income. My school was paid for, my rent was paid for by
Mhm.
him. And, the kind of the deal was like, hey, if you're going to do this on your own, you got to support yourself. And I was like, game on, let's do it. Like, so I literally went to this guy, Chandler, and I was like, give me every single job possible you have. And so I was in the kitchen, I was doing demos at gyms, I was driving in my car, our delivery drives, because we delivered across the state of Florida for these meal prep companies. And the times that we delivered were from 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. So I would work in the kitchen all day and we were extremely understaffed. And this was a rapidly growing company. And I understand why now, being a business owner a couple of years later. I'm like, why don't we just hire more people? And now I know why. They probably didn't want to cut in the profits, and they wanted to, really maximize everything. So I would work in the kitchen from like 7 to 7. I'd go home for like an hour, I'd eat, and then I'd go back. And 2 days a week, I would drive down to Fort Myers, which is 2 hours south of Tampa, at 12 a.m. And do all these deliveries because it paid the most. It was the highest paying delivery. I could have done local ones, but I was like, I need more money. So, and then I'd get done around 6, and there was this Cracker Barrel off the highway that I'd sleep in my car for like 3 hours just to get enough sleep because I'd been going for like 18 hours straight. And then I'd drive home, I'd sleep a little bit, I'd have like one day off, and on top of all that, I was filming YouTube videos. I was, trying to start my own business, but at that point, I had no idea what was going on. So that's where I really felt like that was one of the best decisions of my life. It taught me, like, all the work ethic I had today was dropping out of school, and
Mhm.
taking that year off. I actually ended up going back to school and finishing and became a really good student. I think from that year I took off. So that's kind of how I believe that, like, my first dollar, like, I truly made, and like the experience, like the entrepreneurial experience, because I saw it firsthand with this guy who eventually ended up exiting the company.
Mhm.
And I think I started a few cents and sold some as well. So he
That's
had a huge
awesome.
impact on my life.
I think you said something right there that a lot of people need to understand. I get hit up a lot, and they're basically saying like, "Hey, are you hiring, or you have any positions open?" And you took the approach to where it's like you went to the business owner and said, "Give me all the tasks that you want, like that I can do. Like, let me help as much as possible." From a business owner standpoint, right? There's nothing more that you can do than basically say, "I want to do everything that I can." Because as business owners, when we're starting a business, right, the last thing we want is somebody that's trying to basically collect a paycheck.
Hmm.
Like, you want to collect a paycheck, go to a corporate job where they don't expect you to answer your phone at 5:01 p.m. But as small business owners, you want to be a part of something small, you want to be a part of sort of a startup, and you don't want to work that corporate 9 to 5, but you want more of a little team, and you want to be able to do things, like, know that you got to put in more work, but also to know that you're going to have to do tasks, and you need to ask for tasks that you don't know how to do so that you can figure it out. Because, like, throughout the years, I've had employees where I know, okay, this is my expectation of this employee. This is what it is. I can't expect them to give me more because they don't want to give me more. They're here to collect a paycheck. You got a job that's simply just to collect a paycheck. And then people are like, well, how do I get inside the inner circle? Well, answer your phone past 5:01 p.m. Right? It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But it's like, show up. And I had the same thing. So I've worked for myself for a long time. Well, yeah, out of the last 15 years, 2.5 years, I worked for another company, and it was Shreds. And I don't think I've ever told this story. So I got a job working there, teaching trainers how to sell supplements because I was a trainer selling supplements in the gym, buying wholesale and flipping it. And we started that project, and it didn't really pan out as it should have, right?
Hmm.
And he was like, "Hey, we got to cut the program." And I went back to him and I was like, "Look, Just keep me on payroll. Just, I'll do anything. I literally said to the CEO of the company, I'll scrub your fucking toilets. Just keep me on payroll. I want to be a part of this company. And he did. He said, okay. And I made fucking pennies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like bad, living in Jersey, right? This was below poverty,
Mm-hmm.
way below poverty. And then I kept showing up. As much as I was like, that I can't even pay my rent with this. I was like, I'll keep showing up. And then it became task after task after task. And before I knew it, I was making a good income in a matter of a few months. But it's basically showed them and showed him that like he wants to be here. He wants to learn. He doesn't care about the pay. He wants to be a part of the community. And for that, you get rewarded in time. The entitlement shit where you expect to make X amount and you have zero experience in a small business, you have zero experience in making any money yourself. Like, I can do your job myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need you. But if you want to be here, I can find something for you to do. And that's how the company's run. And that's why it was able to be so successful so fast. Really, the problem was it was too successful too fast.
Mm-hmm.
That was really the demise of the company. But it was like you got to really give your all if you're wanting to be a part of something that's going to be big. And it's like the same thing when it comes to like diet nutrition. You can't half-ass it and expect to be the best. Like you got to put in the full energy. And that's why business owners usually run around with a lot of stress because it's nonstop go 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 because ain't no one going to do it for us. And we find those little carrots of those people that want to be a part of the bigger picture, and I try to build my team to be around. Like I have a rule that I live by inside my company is that I never say no. I never want to hear a no in return. Essentially what that means is, hey, if you want to take off on Friday and go do your thing and whatever, hey, just make sure your job's complete. I don't care. However, answer my text at 7 p.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah, for real. It goes a long way, and it goes.
It's a two-way street here,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
So
And I
what
think
got
something
you?
that go ahead.
I was gonna say, what got you into, I guess, coaching in general, right? I know we're heavy into personal fitness, but what made that transition to become a coach?
Yeah, so obviously when you are, and I know you can relate to this, and probably some of the people watching this is, when you are into fitness and people can see your results and they see how much you care about it, especially when you're in public settings and you say no to either alcohol or you're choosing healthy food options, you become kind of the go-to person, in like
Mm,
your circle or like your
yeah.
family, to where like people just ask you for free advice, and I was that guy for, a couple years, to where, like my boys, like, all my friends would be like, hey, Clayton, can I work out with you? Like, I want to see like what you're doing. And the idea of like actually starting a business and coaching didn't come until I started my 9 to 5 job. And I always knew I wanted to start a business. My grandpa started our family business. And my dad eventually took it over. All of my uncles, even my mom's side, was really big on the construction side of things. So I saw a lot of entrepreneurship, growing up, because that's just like what it was, the
Yeah.
business, the family business. And so when I started my 9 to 5 job, I quickly realized, okay, I'm not cut out for this. Like this isn't something that, because things were just moving too slow. I didn't like not being in control, of, X reasons, of when I get promoted, or, because I got an insurance job out of college because that's what I just wanted. Yeah, that was a connection I got. That's what you're supposed to do,
Mhm.
right? Like you get your degree, you get your corporate job, and it was an amazing company. Like they were a great company. I'm really grateful for the opportunity that I got with them. I got in with it wasn't like some massive insurance agency. It was a pretty privately owned one. They were based out of Georgia, but they had a small office here in Tampa, and it was a father and son, who ran the office. Father was old school, like very successful, like had been in the industry for like 40, like 30 plus years, had a massive book of business. Even his son, I think he was like in his early 30s, super successful dude. And I just saw that and I was like, oh, like if these guys are, crushing it financially, and they told me I could make 6 figures my first year in sales, like if I really put my foot to the ground and like went after it, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, like, let's do it.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. And so I did all the, all the bitch work, the office work, all the proposals. I put those together. And I will say this, the biggest takeaway I took from that job, and I think it really helped me with my business now, was the attention to detail that it taught me. Because these
Mm,
proposals had to be like perfectly put. I had to create these certificates of insurance. And I had to make sure, like, literally, if one detail was off, like, they'd email me back and be like, hey, this thing's off. It needs to be right. And this guy, like I said, this guy was old school. This wasn't some like new entrepreneur, like driving some super fancy car. Like, he was like, no BS. Like, we're gonna get stuff done here. So after a while though, they told me I was going to get promoted in X time frame, and it just took too long. It just took way too long. I passed my test. The 220, like, it was property and casualty insurance, like general liability, workers comp, mainly for construction companies. So when I did get promoted, I didn't really have that same fire compared to when I first got hired, because it had been a while. Some days at my desk, I'd have an hour's total worth of work. So I'd just be sitting there, and I would see all these ads. Since I followed all the fitness guys, I would see all these ads for fitness business coaches, and like how to start your own online business. And when I got promoted and I started cold calling people and driving across the state of Florida in my car and knocking on doors, and these were high like revenue construction companies that I was targeting. So these policies I was selling were like, some of them were like over $600,000, $700,000, $1 million policies. And I don't know anything about sales. I don't know anything about insurance. So I'm
yeah.
walking in there and I'm like, yo, what's your relationship with your broker? And they're like, it's great. And I'm like, all right, see ya. Like, and I didn't know any of this stuff. It's hard to sell something you don't know a lot about. Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything on the product. So after a while, I was like, I don't like doing this. Like, this sucks. And so that's when um, I saw an ad for a couple different business coaches for personal trainers. I actually ended up getting saved, during that time frame. I grew up in church my whole life, and my faith's been a big part of this. And I truly believe, God put me in certain areas and certain rooms for a reason. I went to a
Mm,
kind of a Christian men's business conference. It was called the King's Council. They're still a thing. They've kind of like separated some leadership, but Steve Weatherford, who's very big, in the fitness
yeah.
space, ran the conference. I'm a football fan, so I knew who he was, and
Sure.
super jacked dude. And I'm like, I want to be like this guy. So I was there, and I met a kid at the conference who told me he was an online coach, and he mentioned his personal trainer, or his business coach, who was Brian Mark, who was my first, business mentor, who I can't say enough about. The dude has had, like I've mentioned to you before, like outside of my dad and my grandpa, has had the biggest impact on my life. I joined his program, and from there it was like 9 to 5. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. I would work on posting and work on my business, and I started a social media straight from scratch because I didn't want, like, this company was private, like, so I felt like they had a lot more ammo in terms, if I
Mhm.
did start to say like, hey, I'm posting, I'm running this business, compared if it was
Yeah.
some major corporation, I wouldn't be as worried. But I was like, I'm going to start a different social media because I don't want my coworkers to see what I'm doing, basically. So I started a brand new social media from scratch, and they were like, the coaching program was like, don't do that. Like, you need to tap into your current audience. And I
It's
was like,
very true.
no, I want to start a brand new page and kind of just make this something completely new that I'm doing. So it'd be like 5 to 8. I would post and message people, and like, just, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was going after it.
You're doing
Yeah, I was doing it. And then my lunch break, I'd do it. I'd get off work around 4. And then from 4 to whenever I went to sleep, I'd work on it. And I did that for a while. And then, funny enough, I like how all this ties together. Like, I went to Summer Smash, at first form. And at this point, I'd been doing the business for probably 4-ish months. I'd seen some success. Um, and when I went to Summer Smash, I talked to Sal Frisella, and he was telling, because I know he quit his corporate job and
Mhm.
he went to go work for First Form. And I asked him, and I was like, hey, man, like, is there ever going to be like, when should I do it? Basically, he was like, it's going to be scary as shit no matter when you do it. Like, he's like, so I would just do it like as soon as you possibly can. And little did I know, when I got back, my boss called me in my office because I hadn't made a sale yet. It'd been like 16 weeks since I got promoted. I hadn't made a sale yet. I was barely in the office, and I was mentally checked out. And they told me they were going to put me on a call count. They were going to take me out of my office. I had my own office, and they were going to basically micromanage the shit out of me. And I kind of took that as my sign. Like I was like, okay, I think I signed like 3 clients the month prior. And I kind of took that as my sign. I was like, okay, like if I can, and I didn't have 90-day runway of cash. I didn't have any of that. And like I know it went against like all odds in terms of like I should quit and leave, but I just felt like God was really speaking to me and saying like this is your opportunity, like just do it. Like imagine if you had all day every day to pour into this, like 5 a.m. to when you wake up till you went to bed. So literally I quit on the spot and they were shocked. I was like I'm gonna do this. So that next month I ended up, I think tripling my clientele, in my first month, going on my own. And it's been full time ever since. And it's just got to a place where I'm just so grateful and so blessed to what's, really happened. And I would have never imagined, to where I've got to where I am today. It's truly just been the most cool journey ever and most rewarding thing ever.
That's awesome. So for those that don't know, we talk about a 90-day run rate in cash. So basically, you need to make the same money for 90 days, typically, before you decide to leave one income and rely on that business to continue to pay you. Reason being is oftentimes when you start a company, a service-based company, you get an influx of cash right off the get because it's brand new and all your boys and all your friends and family and see that you're doing it. They're going to want to support. They're going to want to work with you. And then it typically falls off. And typically around that 60 to 90-day mark is when it usually starts to turn down. So we need to at least get where we're consistent with cash before we leave and do something else, because it first starts as a side hustle, as it did, and then it needs to turn into a business, right? But that's awesome that how it all kind of like works together sometimes. I've had a lot of moments in my life to where very unsure, but very confident.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a somewhat of a similar upbringing to where my father owned his own excavation business, and I can run any piece of heavy equipment. You give me 30 minutes and look like I've been doing this for 20 years, whether it's backhoe, track hoe, skid steer, bobcat, dozier, doesn't matter, right? I could build a pad and do anything you want to do with a big, heavy piece of equipment. And it's a decent paying job if you can run a piece of equipment. And when I essentially went to college, my dad said that, and I was so shocked because I was 16. I'm like, I'm going to take over the business. And he was like, okay. He never wanted me to do that
Mm-hmm.
because he'd worked so hard, so long, and it's constant searching for the next job, constant searching for the next job. '08 hit, took a blunder, right? It was terrible. It's because I graduated in '08. So it was like really at the time to where like, if I'm going to really get into this, it's like the worst time to get into it,
Yeah,
right?
seriously.
Because the housing market just collapsed
Mm-hmm.
and we worked on residential. And so he said, I've taught you everything it is you need to know to work with your hands. Now go use your brain. And I was like, what? Like I've been working so hard to become so good at this, to do this. And he was like, now go use your brain. He was like, you can always fall back on the skills that I taught you. Now go do something else. So with that confidence being said, I was like, I'll always be okay on what my father taught me. I can go get a job in construction right now. Not a problem. I can pay the bills. Worst case scenario, got a skill set. I have a trade that a lot of people don't have. Even though it's been 15 years since I've really been on a piece, I know that I could pick it back up. No problem. It's like riding a bike. So I've always had this like, we'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case scenario, I can fire everybody and I'll be just fine. I've always had that mentality to where like I always, even though I didn't know where the paycheck was going to come, and I've had super stressful moments since my overhead from having different employees and warehouses
Yeah.
has been sometimes crazy to where dude, my overhead would be $80,000 a month. And I'm like, how am I going to pay for all this?
Mm-hmm.
But it always works out because you always show up. And it seems like that, whatever it may be, whatever you believe in, it's going to present itself. You just have to be ready for when it does. And I've said this before on a previous podcast is that I heard somebody say that it's easy to build a business. It takes a long time to become the person it takes to build that business.
Damn. Yeah.
Because I
And
firmly believe that wanting to make $1 million is not crazy. It's not crazy. The skill sets you have to learn to get there, that's the hard part.
yeah, I agree with that because once you start to advance in your business career and you start to see more success, a couple years in, you kind of start to look at that, $1 million goal and you're like, oh, like it's really not as complicated as, everyone makes it out to be. And it's very easy, and I'm sure that I'm I'm sure you still work on this today as well. Every person that's in business and wants to achieve success, it's very easy to, you know, chase that monetary stuff and, get caught up in that sometimes. And usually
Yeah.
when you do get caught up in that is when things start to go backwards because you lose sight of the vision and you lose sight of why you even started it and the impact that you wanted to make. And that's why it's always so important to focus on the people that are giving you business. It's always so important to focus on just developing the right character traits of someone who's worthy of achieving that goal. Because if you focus so much on the character traits of the person that's trying to achieve that, whatever goal it is, it's just going to come so naturally. Because if you're always focusing on that compared to just chasing, because whatever you chase runs. Like if you just chase that, it's just going to be an endless loop of this hamster wheel of chasing fulfillment. And it's like if you're always putting your fulfillment in some monetary goal, like you're not going to last. It's not going to be sustainable. And that's why most people don't last in business is because that's why they're doing it compared to truly doing it and focusing on like, okay, who's like you said, who's the person that's worthy of building these skill traits? Like I need to become that person who's worthy of having the skill traits of achieving whatever goal I want to achieve.
And with that being said, like you invested early into mentorship,
Hmm.
right? How big of a play do you think that is to
Dude,
equate to the success you have today?
it's everything. I've spent now close, probably over six figures in just mentorship. And it's been the best. I've learned more from investing in my first business coach. And I was in this program for 3 years, almost 3 years, than all the amount of school I did in that 3 years. I would not be where I am today without that mentorship because it taught me marketing, it taught me sales, it taught me just the mindset around building a business. And it's learning because I tried to do it on my own the first time when I dropped out of school and I failed miserably. And like I think a lot of people are so scared to invest in themselves. Not even that it's not going to work. I think that they question, are they going to do it? Like am I going to be able to do this? It's more of a self-worth and a self-belief thing more than anything because it is scary when you start to invest in bigger mentorship programs, that are $1,000 plus a month. And at first, like I think the first mentorship program I invested in with Brian was $400 a month at the time. And when I was working my 9 to 5 job, that was a lot of money. And usually, if you are working a 9 to 5 job, like that is like
Yeah.
even like I mean, $400 a month is a lot. Like is a lot. It's a car payment for most people. Like, and when you are doing that on top of all your other investments, especially if you have a family and you have other people to take care of, puts even more pressure. And I was
Yeah.
very grateful enough to be in a position to where you know I didn't have when I was out of college, I didn't have any student debt or I didn't have a car payment. So like I was very, very fortunate, to have a little bit of a better circumstance versus I know other people have a ton of those variables that
Yeah.
come into that. But it comes down to the end of the day, it's like you have to look at it from an abundance mindset to say like this is an investment. Like it's not an expense. And like what if this I can turn this in like turn it into triple or to 5x and replace my 9 to 5 income because the other alternative, like what's the alternative here? Like you stay in the same exact situation. And if it doesn't work out, at least like at least and you didn't like go another 5 years staying in a situation that you just hate or that you're uncomfortable in. And which is
There's
what most people spend their whole lives
there's never a mentorship that I've been a part of where I didn't get something from it.
in. Hmm.
Like every event that I've gone to. Like my objective when I go to an event is to get one line, one sentence. That's it. Just one sentence. Because I'm not going there to change my life. I'm going there to grab one piece of knowledge that I can take back and implement and do and turn that sentence into money. That's where it takes a long time to become that individual.
Hmm.
Be able to take a sentence and turn it into dollar signs, right? Um, and so we have somewhat of a history as well. About this time last year, I started a group coaching that was for overall business owners trying to learn marketing to some degree. And I closed that group 6 months in. You were a part of it for a brief time. And the reason I shut it down was because I think I told you this. It was too broad. I was teaching people how to market their roofing company and how to make donuts and apparel and personal training. And it was just too, I couldn't give you enough
Hmm.
information to truly help the individual. It was just overall strategy. And not that there's anything wrong with it. I personally want to give more than 30,000 foot view. I want to get in the weeds. And being that I feel like I'm one or two rungs up the ladder than individuals versus being I'm on a whole nother level of the ladder, I can still relate to a lot of things because I'm still in the business. And so I narrowed down, essentially come up with software and AR, right? Which essentially you've been a part of for a few weeks now. And it's very different when I have a conversation with somebody like yourself that's like, hey, I'm investing to grow. And I understand that, like, it takes money to make money. And then I want to learn. And if I break even for the first 90 days, like, hey, totally get it. That's the point of this. I'm going to learn something that's going to help me for the next 5 or 6 years. Right.
Hmm.
But when you have that mentality when you're coming in, dude, it makes everything work better because you understand bigger picture.
Hmm.
And oftentimes I'll have coaches that be like, okay, so it's X amount. All right, so how much money do I have and what are my finances going to be in 6 months from now? And it's like, why are we focused on six? Do you not plan on growing? Like, why are we
Yeah.
focused on like the same money you have now? That's like the mentality that's not abundance, it's like scarcity. It's like the whole point of why you joining this program is to grow. So we need to worry about like 60 days, not 6 months,
Yeah.
6 years, whatever, right? Um, I find there's two different types of people that get on a call. And it's so interesting to see how people think, but it's the experience that they've gone through.
Yeah.
Um, I gotta ask, how's your experience been with AR so far?
Before I dive into that, I think that when you're a new coach just starting out, like I know you mentioned like, hey, like there's two different types of people that I talk to versus like the first person's like, hey, like how quickly can I make my money back? And a lot of these people are just like starting out and they need money and they need
Mm,
clients.
yep.
And like one of my favorite quotes from Hormozy is he says, it's hard to think about brand when you're worried about rent. Like it's hard, like,
Mm,
and it's true where it's like a lot of these coaches, and I'm someone now where I'm so blessed, and like it still blows my mind sometimes where other coaches will ask me for business advice. And like it's I can see where they're coming from, kind of like what you just mentioned to me of saying like, hey, like how quick can like how quickly can I get this? And it's like because I was in that mindset too when I first started. Because you want clients, you want business, so that way you can just see more success and like have the life that you want. And kind of transitioning that into AR in my experience so far. Like when I joined, I didn't join with the intent of okay, like I need to join this so I can make a super quick ROI. Like the systems and things that you are training is going to lead to long term sustainability, to where it's going to be sustained success and not just something that where you just like want to just join and make a quick buck. That's not what it's about. Like if you want to nurture leads the right way, if you want to nurture and get business the right way, you have to nurture them. It's like you can't just walk up to some stranger on the street who's overweight and be like, hey, join my program. Like you have to have a conversation with them and get more of an idea of where they're at and lead with value. Like, hey, I understand that you're struggling with workouts right now. Like, here's a free workout that you can do from at home or at the gym. Specifically in my case, I work with busy moms, so a lot of them can't make it to the gym. So I'm like, and a lot of them just search TikTok and they search Instagram, just looking for random workouts. I'm like, hey, just follow this video. Here's a 10-minute video that you can make your own workout program. I made it for you that you can utilize, and you lead with value that way. And having AR, which has been great so far in terms of just automation and a lot of stuff that used to just be such a pain in the ass. Something as little as if I sign a client at dinner, I'm trying to get them in my app as soon as possible, to where it's just like now it's just taken care of. To where it's like if they when the second they invest, like they're automatically in everything. It's all taken care of. So my experience has been awesome so far, man. It's been so cool. Just like it's a lot of things, a lot of decisions and anxiety off of my plate of just of the minuscule things that I just don't that as business owners you don't like doing. Like
Sure.
like Dan Martell, who's one of my favorite people that I follow. I'm not sure if you know who that is, but he talks a lot about like how certain entrepreneurs hit like a pain line, like, and once they get to certain tasks like that they don't like doing, their business won't grow beyond that because they're
Mm,
basically stuck at doing like these like little tasks that they don't like doing, and they're not going to
yeah.
grow past that because they hate doing it. And so it's like this is a task that I've been able to outsource now, to where it allows more time for me to invest in my mental energy, which is going to ultimately be better for my clients, and it's going to be better for the content that I put out. Because if I'm constantly doing things that I hate, I'm not going to be the right man. I'm not going to be in the right mindset.
Yeah. And I think there's a fine line between, and those are the things that you typically would hire out, right? You
Hmm.
hire out things you just don't like to do. And not every coach or every business in a position that's starting out, or not even starting out, just a solopreneur has the funds that are the pain of it isn't worth the cost it takes to hire somebody to do it, right? So if we can automate a process, it's almost like half a person inside the business immediately, right? And we talked about ROI. Have we had an ROI so far?
Yes. Yeah. So this month, I've signed this month, I believe 5 or 6 new clients. And I believe 4 of them were through, the nurturing system that I utilized, through, posting content through the things that we have implemented so far. But once again, like I haven't even really fully done I haven't done any
Yeah.
campaigns. I haven't
Yeah.
done
So
any
what we've
like
been 3, 4 weeks?
3 weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Awesome.
honestly too, like I was traveling for a week of it, and Thanksgiving's this week, so I haven't really truly
Yep.
dove like 100% into it, just because honestly too, when you do sign 4 to 6 new clients, like, and on top of
Got some onboarding.
serving 50 plus as well, like I think 60 around there, like you're trying to make sure that they're taken care of as well. So I've done the whole thing to where I try and add a crazy amount at once, and it's not sustainable.
Mhm.
So it's like I'm trying to make sure that the people do invest, I'm taking care of them, and on top of that, making sure my current members are taken care of, and you know, it's like it's a
There's
fine line. It's
there's an
to where you're
important
gonna make
piece that we're saying here, and it's that
delivery.
it's a hell of a lot easier to keep a client
Hmm.
than it is sign a new one.
Absolutely.
So focus on the people that pay you. And we've one of our core values is day 51, and I want to treat the clients on day 51 like we did day one when they were
I
paying
like
us,
that. I like that a lot.
because that's how you keep retention, right? I showed a screenshot yesterday of my agency, which is really outside of AR. And AR, I haven't had any chargebacks either, but I have 0 chargebacks since 2018 when we started.
It's amazing.
And that company coming up on 2 million in rev. And I like really am fucking proud of that. Like really proud of that, because that means that myself and my team always put customer first and client first, right? It's going above and beyond. It's making sure communication is there, right? Have I been perfect? Absolutely not. Have I fixed it? Yeah. Have I dropped the ball and gave people free stuff for it? Absolutely. But that's the difference when you're creating a subscription model business versus, hey, pay me 10 grand up front and best of luck to you.
Yeah,
It's like, I have to sell you every month through my effort and our work
that's a good point.
and by our delivery. And so I know that's one of the big things that you've been trying to do is set up these reoccurring versus only, those upfront pieces. And, we've talked about that. What are we delivering to ensure that we constantly are making this person go, man, I never want to leave.
Hmm.
Right. So, fun fact here, and this is, I say fun fact. I don't have these numbers for it. I'm just going based on my personal experiences, in my opinion, what I've seen. Clients see better results when we train them online versus in person. In person, they stay longer and pay us more money. I've had clients in person for years lose 5 pounds because they're not doing anything outside of the gym. Right? You're not paying me for nutrition advice, technically, but also, two, you're not willing to put in that energy and effort and work to do that anyway. You're paying for somebody to show up in time and give you a workout. When it comes to the online side, we see crazy results because I can't be there with you. So I'm going to be with you 24/7.
Exactly.
And so we see better results online, but we make less money. I think it's so intriguing to me. That's how do we pull that same personal touch that we would in person in online so they see better results and stay around for a long time? Because most people don't quit a program because I saw great results. They quit a program because we lost connection. And that's in any business. Communication's key, day 51. Every 51 days, it should be like the previous 51 in your communication skills, what you're delivering, how you're impacting. So if you want to make more money, actually help people and stop focusing on only signing up new clients.
Facts.
It's going to lead me into my next question I got here for you. What is one thing or your biggest takeaway that you've gotten from a client? What have they taught you?
That's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. Um, I think the biggest takeaway, you know, for me personally, since I work with moms, is basically I have two guy clients. I used to work with only men, but now I work obviously with only busy moms for the past 2 years now. I think the biggest takeaway that I've gotten is you truly can make whatever you make time for what's a priority. And that might be elementary and cliche, but I have some moms in my program who are single moms of 3 kids under the age of 10, and they do not miss. They don't miss a workout, they don't miss their macros, they don't miss a check-in, and they show up every single day, even Saturday and Sunday. I have clients like that, and it blows my mind to where they make this happen regardless of everything that they have going on inside of their lives. And when I have another member come to me and they're like, I'm just so busy, like I can't, like, it's just so hard. I'm just like, I think in my mind, I'm like, well, X person has 10X on their plate and they're still making it happen. And it's because it's a priority to them. And it just truly blows my mind. Some of these moms that I work with, where like I'm looking at their calendar on Trainerize and like it's just flawless over like a 6 month period. I'm like, this person has not missed once. And they have way more on their plate than I do. Like caring for kids, they have to actually go to a location for a job. And that's probably been my biggest takeaway from, what I've learned from a client is like you truly like make time for what's a priority. And that's not only with like your actions with your time, it's your finances as well. Like where like on other areas inside of your life like are showing like where you are spending your money and you are spending your time is where your priorities are.
Has
And
that taught you a lesson personally to where it's like, okay, I need to stop being fucking lazy?
dude, like, I mean, I think as coaches it's very easy to like, when you're fit and you're like you've been in the gym for 6 plus years, 10 plus years, it's very easy to just say, like, I don't need to, track as diligently. I can eyeball this, I can do this. And there was a point last year, man, to where like I was not on top of my fitness game. Like I was going to the gym, I was eating clean, like some people would say, but I wasn't tracking. I was, eating some pretty bad foods consistently. And I didn't feel as aligned to where like I'd be, telling a client on a check-in where I'm like, hey, like, get your shit together. And then I'm like, I can't even tell this person that because I'm not even
Mhm.
doing this, what they're doing. And so leading by example, and I've been blessed to have some amazing fitness coaches too, to where like I really was able to hire, couple different ones I've worked with in the last couple of years, to really dial that in, just to make sure that I'm leading by example. And they've taught me, I think the biggest lesson they've taught me is just like continue to just like show up for yourself, like regardless of what's going on. Like we've all got shit going on, but like you have to make sure that your fitness is a huge priority, regardless of, what status or how long you've been tracking, whatever, because it pours in other areas inside of your life.
You talked about having your shit together, and obviously it's November, so I'm gonna bring it up. Talk to me about the lowest moment of your journey.
Of business or life?
I think life ties into business, so let's go personal.
I would say lowest moment was around this time last year. Me and my girlfriend split for not a crazy amount of time, but um, that was a just life altering time to where like I was so focused on business and growth that I lost sight of just all of really the important stuff inside of my life, which were people and relationships. And as a result of that, like my business just plummeted. It wasn't, I was seeing massive success, inside of my business, and to a point to where it was just, I was still doing good, but not to where, it should have been. And, a huge quote that I see is like entrepreneurship is the ultimate self like development journey. Like it truly is, because like you really find out people in your life who matters, like who still cares about you, like who understands the amount of work that you're putting in. So I would say like the biggest low was around this time last year when that happened. And it just, I had some time to reflect and just really look back on my actions and say like I need to be better as a man, not even just as a business owner. Like I need to be a better partner. I need to be just someone who shows up more, and it's not all about me, and it's about everyone else inside of my life, because other people, like, because if your relationship's a wreck, Garen, there's probably a chance that your business isn't going to be like as good as it possibly can be, and that people are gonna feel your energy. Like if there's an area off inside of your life, especially in a coaching aspect, to where you are pouring into others. And so I would say that was probably my biggest low so far. Was it was a very dark time, to where even at the time too, my best friend since I was um since second grade went missing just out of nowhere. And so two of the closest people inside of my life were in it, just gone, just like that, to where, and it was just a very lonely time. So I was very grateful to know we're now back together. We're the best we've ever been. I was very grateful she gave me the opportunity to get back together, and I'm not going to mess that up again. So
So I 1000% know what you mean and can relate. Obviously gone through a divorce, through going into COVID with massive amount of work, with coffee blowing up. And I thought, I'll handle all the business, like deal with what you need to do. And it created a massive riff. A lot of shit happened, but I know the feeling and can relate. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate. And I think it honestly falls more on the guy side as a responsibility of the financial provider, right? Bring home the bacon, whatever you want to call it. And like, this is my duty. I feel like as a man, and this is my identity, and like what I'm trying to accomplish and do. It's for us, which brings me to a Sean Vasquez, one of my best friends, owner of Pride Foods. He said to me one time, I was like, man, I want to have like a really nice house in the mountains of Colorado. And he was like, do it. I was like, and I want it in like 2 years. He was like, go for it. Do it. Just remember why you're doing it. Because you're not going to want that house if you're there alone.
mm,
I was
yeah,
like, he was like, if you just backed off 10%, you'd save. And I'm in a different relationship at the time with Paula now. He was like, you'll still get it. Just might take you an extra year. He's like, but at least you're going to have a family by the time you get there.
yeah,
Like, you're going to work yourself to the ground. You're going to have all the things, but no one to share them with. And I feel like that's difficult. And we have, I think, gut checks in times, because I already know you probably have some days where you backslide putting business first,
all the time.
right? And you have to like have a gut check and be like, I probably shouldn't take this 7 p.m. call,
Yeah,
but it's money. Let me push it. And sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And I think it's the awareness of that. But I think the real factor is that once you become aware and we don't make the changes, then it's selfish.
yeah, it's a problem.
right? So you have to, once you become problem aware in any issue that you have in your life, and it is problem aware, and you decide to go against it, and you know your gut instinct says, hey, don't eat that. You know you shouldn't do that. You know you don't need to do that. You know that's not what's best for the family or the unit or yourself, but you do it anyway.
Hmm.
That's a difficult place to be in, because the more that you go against that and you listen to that little voice and you go against and you go against it and you go against it, what happens is that you eventually, it becomes normal to just listen to the voice. And you wake up one day and go, what the fuck happened?
Hmm.
And it's just like drinking, right? Just one drink a night, just two, and then it just keeps going, keeps going, and before you know it, you've got whiskey in your coffee in the morning, right?
That could be a whole nother podcast, man. With
For sure.
especially with men, and these days, and
That's something I've been really trying to, I think, be more a part of. And it's funny. I get asked to go speak at events, and never is it about business. And I'm like, that's what I should talk about, because I feel like that's what I'm best at. But I think the real apparent reason why people bring me in is this: they have been able to be successful and gone through a lot. I had a good childhood, but I had a hard childhood. Like, I struggle with being enough. And so sometimes I wrap my identity around the dollar.
mhm.
Well, I'm only as good as the amount of money I got. It's like, well, that's actually the last thing that makes you a man, right?
Yeah.
However, sometimes we identify ourselves because of what we see online. We have envy come into play. And I think envy is like the root of all evil when it comes to making decisions based for the family.
Yeah. I think that a big transition for me is because I've been there. When you go from working a 9 to 5 job. I was working a 9 to 5 job, making not that much money. You know, I was it was like 40 grand, like coming out of college, and then or coming out of that 9 to 5 into like transitioning to becoming a business owner and seeing a lot of success. In a short time period, I remember like my average months were like 10 to 12K, a month. And then all of a sudden it went from 1 month, it went from 10 to 12 to 35 and in 1 month. And like, it was the biggest dopamine like hit, to where like it was so like I still to this day, like it was so hard to describe the actual feeling of like processing that, because you never really envisioned, I never envisioned myself like experiencing that much success. And at that moment it was very easy to get tied to numbers, and I think every business owner can relate to this, to where you start putting your fulfillment in numbers and record breaking months and all this monetary stuff. And now I've changed that to where like my fulfillment doesn't come from how much money I make. Like God doesn't care how much money I make, he's still gonna love me the same. Like, I'm putting my fulfillment in how am I showing up as a person, like how am I treating other people. Like, and I feel like if you transition into that mindset compared to the monetary stuff, it's like your success will just skyrocket, and you'll be a lot more happy too. Like, it'll be a lot more sustainable. You're going to want more compared to the other side that me and you have just both spoke on and experiencing.
Yeah, I think it's funny because whenever I have low days, and just for you guys that some of you are going to relate, some of you don't know yet, 33% of your days are going to be terrible, bad. You're not going to feel like you can do anything right. Not at home, not in business. You feel like worthless of a man. 33% of those days are going to be neutral, to where it's just, hey, it's just another day. Where did it go? What happened? I don't even remember. And then 33% of those days are going to be great. We're going to have wins. Life's going to be good. We're going to top of the world. And the problem is how you deal with the bad days, because after the good day comes the bad day. And you just don't know when that's going to be, but do know that it's going to be 33% of the time. And it's how you deal with the negative days. Can I bring that up to a neutral day? Can I still make it an okay day? And then can I take the neutral days and make those into, hey, it's a positive because it wasn't a bad day? And I think that's how we stay above that 66% line, to where, like, overall, I'm working in the right direction. Because I can tell you right now, if you're looking to get into coaching, you're looking to own a business, like, the chances of your success are less than if you just got a corporate job. Everyone open up a gym, 80% of gyms close in the first 5 years. You're going against the odds, and odds are 80% of the time you're going to fail. Are you okay with that before you sign the lease? If
Mm-hmm.
not, it's not for you. You shouldn't do it. 2% of e-commerce companies make 7 figures gross, which means $200,000 that you're going to make if you actually crush it in the e-com world. Are you okay with that? No, probably shouldn't do it. You got to know what you're going up against. You can't just go in thinking, man, this is going to be perfect. Like, no, it's going to be hell. This is where it comes into becoming the man it takes to be able to build the business. And I think that the mental health side of it, when it comes to that business, that's what's stopping us from continuing. That's what's stopping us from starting, is the fear of failure. And I have failed more times than I've won, but
Mm-hmm.
every failure has set me up to be able to, when I do win, feel like it's a pretty solid hit. Might be a home run, but at least I got on base.
Mm-hmm.
At least I got on base. That's the objective for me. Is step up to the plate. You might not make it, but give it a good cut. Give it all you got. Because if you half-ass it, you might as well walk back to the dugout.
There's no point.
Odds are you're going to go back to the dugout. And I'm okay with that, because I stepped up to the plate and I've given it a shot. The truth is, I've never had a normal job. I don't know what retail's like. I don't know what a cashier position is. I've never worked fast food. I've never worked an hourly job where I got paid an hourly rate. I don't know what that's like. I never want to find out.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have to, man, it's because I went down swinging.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to give it everything I got. Because to me, even though I work more, I think, than the average person that works the 9 to 5, I've got the freedom to build and do what I want, when I want, how I want.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is freedom. Freedom is not the vacations. Freedom is the thought that I can take a vacation if I want to.
It's time.
The mental space, that's freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you check out on Fridays, you don't have freedom. And for me, it's like, well, I know I can check out whenever I want. Do I want to? Some days I force myself to check out because, hey, you've been running hard. You need a break. Even though the whole time I'm during the break, I think about all the shit I need to do, but I really try to deregulate. And I know you can probably relate to that as well.
Yes.
But you just kind of keep showing up. One of my favorite phrases that I use often is that if you'll run your business like you do your fitness, you'll get 1% better every day.
It's real, man. I mean, I had a, I'm not gonna call him out, but I had a guy come up to me in the gym a couple weeks ago. He's another coach, and he asked me, like, what do you think I should do, like, to grow? Because he was struggling to grow and he wasn't really seeing much success. And I asked him, I was like, how many messages are you sending out a day? And he's like 10. And I'm like, 10? Like a day? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, like, you should be doing that in 10 minutes. Like, like, and, or they're doing it only a couple times a week. And I don't think people really understand the amount of volume it takes and reps it takes to truly start to see the fruit. And, like, saying no, like, you got to say no, like, to, when you're first starting out, like, you haven't earned it yet. Like, you truly have to say, you got to say no to trips, you got to say no to certain events, you got to say no to certain people, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. People are gonna tell you, people are gonna call you selfish, people are gonna say all you care about is money, people are gonna say all you care about is your business, and you have to be okay with that judgment. And it's something that I'm just now rekindling a lot of friendships that I did not have at the beginning of my business. And because a lot of them said those things to me. And I was recently at a wedding, and one of my childhood friends came up to me and said, "You know what? I was upset with you for a while, but I get it. Like I understand why you did what you had to do. Now that I see what you're doing." And it was really cool to hear that, because I was like, of course that's never anyone's intention. You don't want to intentionally just ignore people, or intentionally like
Yeah.
be like, you know what, screw this guy. Like, you have to say no if you truly want to get to that next version of yourself and become a full-time business owner, a full-time coach, because you're competing with a lot of people, and like, you have to show up ruthlessly. But that's the thing, did you show up ruthlessly and daily, you will see success a lot faster than you think, because most people aren't showing up daily.
That reminds me. So I've had workout partners in the past that would workouts would be a 3-hour routine. You get there, it takes forever. We work out, we eat afterwards, and it's like, I can't do this. This is wasting my time. I'm here to exercise and get my workout and go home. It's like, to me, like, I don't have time to socialize from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. every day. I was like, I need to get back. I'm trying to build something. I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to grow something. It's not a personal thing. It's just we're in different phases of our life right now. I think that's really hard for people to understand too, is like, you got to go through phases, and everyone not going to be on the same phase. I got buddies of mine that do what I do and work for themselves, and we won't go 4 months without saying a word. And it's like, hey man, how you doing? And we pick right back up because we're both busy as, whatever. And then I have people that work 9 to 5s. I'm like, dude, where'd you go? I'm like, what do you mean? I spoke to you not too long ago. He's like, it's been 5 months. Blink of an eye. But
It's a
that's
different
just the
mindset.
difference, I think, between somebody that checks out at 5 and somebody that's constantly thinking. Because my spare time that I have, I'm really trying to spend it with my significant other. I
Yeah.
don't have a lot, and I wish I had more to give. And the truth is, in that phase, that phrase I just said right there is an excuse. I wish I had more. You own your own business, Mike. You have all the time you want to give. And I've talked to therapists and whatnot, and because I've gone through divorces, this, that, whatever. And I'm a big advocate of like seeking help when help's needed. Seeking help before help's needed is much better. Take advice on that. But it was, it's just not a priority. Like, it can't be right now. I'm in the weeds. Like, I just can't.
Hmm.
And then I had to admit to myself, this relationship is not a priority. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Very.
That makes you go, as a man, it's like, I'm doing all these things for this thing that I'm not making a priority. So we justify things as a priority sometimes, and really, if we really wanted to make it a priority, we would. And so
Absolutely.
now I really try to check out on the weekends. Like, I
Yeah.
used to be, it's 9 p.m. on a Saturday. I'm on my laptop on the couch as we're watching a movie. Now it's like, no. Friday hits, my phone, my laptop don't even open. I really try to make that happen. Does it always happen? No. But I'm like, oh, you're going to go do something? Okay, then I'm going to work during that time. It's not like all about our world and our significant other is just there because they didn't choose for you to do the business. As I promise you, to some degree, they'd probably rather you go get a 9 to 5, because that means that you would have less stress and be able to spend more time with them. The real ones are the ones that don't care what it takes. They want to see you be successful and you be fulfilled, whether it comes with stress or less time. But people that I think that are constantly nagging in your life, like the friends you essentially kind of talked about, you got to cut those if you
Have to.
want to succeed in a big way.
You have to
Now, I'm not making
eventually.
excuses for working 16-hour days. I'm not. My question to you is, what are you actually doing in those 16 hours a day? Like, because if we were doing that, how many messages could you actually send? How many emails can you respond to in that amount of time? How much content could you actually film? So it's not about when you get up or what your morning routine is or this, that, whatever. It's when I have the time, what am I actually doing with the time? So I always ask people that work with us, what did you do to grow the business today? Don't tell me how long you worked. I don't give a shit about that. What did you do to grow the business? They sent 10 messages and like, so you worked 12 hours and started 10 conversations? not very good, is it?
Mm-mm.
Right? And so it's like, what did we do? So focus on being productive in the time that you do have to make it just that much better. So that when you do have your time off, you're not thinking about the work that you need to do that you didn't do during your big shift of work. I think that's a big switch for me.
I think it is
Dude,
for everyone.
I got one last question for you, man. What do you want people to take away from you?
I think the biggest thing that I always try and teach everyone in my program and just when I talk to them is that it's not about you. Is that everything that you're doing, it's not about yourself. It's about others. Like you want to get more fit. Like, yeah, it's great that you want to be more fit. Like if you're a dad or you're a mom, like, or you're just a man in general who want to get more fit, like it's about you becoming better for others. Like if
Mm,
you're a dad or you're a mom and you can't chase your kids without getting winded, like then you're not even present in that moment. You're too worried about that. If you're so worried about when you take a picture at an outing or on date night, you're worried about how your shirt fits, you're worried about is someone going to post this on social media and I don't like how I
mhm,
look, you're not even present in that moment. You can't enjoy it. Same thing with business, becoming a business owner. If people ask me business advice, I'm like, it's not just about your own like happiness. Like if you're a business owner, chances are you want to experience more freedom because you want to either start a family and be able to be at every practice and every game. And I'm not a dad, but this is just from other, I've had clients who are guys who tell me this. They're like, hey, I want to do what you like. I want to start my own business so that way I can be there for my family more. Like, and realizing that truly, if you don't make it just about yourself and you make it about others, which is what I really try and preach to my clients and just people that I talk to, like it will become so much more fulfillment. Like there'll be a lot more fulfillment compared to just making it about yourself because it's very easy. And I'm human. I make it about myself sometimes too. We all do. But I try and always remember that. And whenever I'm speaking to people and saying like, if you want to experience more confidence, it's not about you. Like you obviously got to fulfill your own decisions and your own commitments daily, but realizing like that's going to help other people around you, which is going to make your life a hell of a lot better. So that's what I want people to take away from me.
dude, that is great. And it brought some ideas to my mind when you said that. It's like when somebody asks you to move furniture, help them move. It's not about you, but you show up wanting to help, right? I think those things, what you just described, is just making you an overall better person.
Hmm.
Because when we make things selfish about ourselves, we actually don't do anything. But when we do things because other people need it, like the example of the kids running around, like the kid needs you. It's not long about you in that moment. So are you in your best self to be able to be there? That could be physically, that could be mentally. Like, are you showing up for others? Because we know we're not always going to show up for ourselves. So I think that's a really great piece of advice, man. I love it. Where
Oh
can we
yeah.
find you?
C. Snyder Coaching on Instagram.
C.
So
Snyder Coaching on Instagram.
I appreciate you having me on, man.
Absolutely, brother. I thank you again. And man, enjoy your holidays. And I'm sure we'll chat soon.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, brother.
My biggest takeaway podcast.